Songwriter, singer, musician, and a founding member of the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, passed away recently at the age of 82. During these past days, I've seen and read dozens of extremely beautiful and meaningful tributes about what he meant to different people. Brian's importance as a composer cannot be overestimated. His huge influence on the development of popular music in the 20th century is undeniable. On this channel I talk a lot about the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson. You could say that almost all of my videos are tributes to them on some level. I will continue talking about Brian and his work on the upcoming videos as we dive into his solo material and the last Beach Boys albums. But today I want to share something else with you. What exactly is the relationship between an artist and a fan? Is it comparable to a friendship? How does it feel like when someone you've grown to care deeply about through their work passes? I personally have always had very mixed feelings about these questions. It almost feels too personal, too close. It almost feels shamefully criminal and wrong to feel so deeply about a stranger. But then again, that's one of the biggest aspects of a great songwriter's work. You know, that's what makes them great, to be able to create that connection with the listener, to have that almost too personal aspect in the music and in the words, like you're reading a secret diary that you're not supposed to read, but in fact the author gave it to you in hopes that you like it. It's a weird bond. Often it can feel like looking into the mirror too. Great songwriters offer you a channel to feel your emotions safely through their art, to get to know yourself better and learn about life. Brian did exactly that. The first time a celebrity's death hit me hard was David Bowie passing in 2016. I remember hiding my tears on a train to school in the morning when I heard the news. It was total shock and a weird different kind of loss. I'd had a lot of loss already at that time in my life. My grandparents died in their 60s and going to the funeral was for me at one time a seasonal thing. But Bowie's death hit differently. I remember feeling extremely lonely because while the whole world was writing headlines about it, I had no one to share that emotion with. It was almost like a secret sorrow that I just couldn't share, and it felt even a little dumb. I hadn't even met the guy. And then the same happened with Leonard Cohen too, the same year. I still didn't figure out how to deal with that feeling. Now it's mid-2024 and we've lost the last two artists that were left on this planet that I cared about the most at this point in my life, David Lynch and Brian Wilson. Both of these deaths came unexpectedly and hit me hard. Brian and David lived relatively close to each other, by the way, near Mulholland Drive, less than 10 miles apart. I've never even been on the west coast of the States. Why would I care about some old dudes in Hollywood? Some casual friend or co-workers might wonder. I don't know. It's very hard to explain. Most people don't seem to care about art the way I do. To me, art is everything. It's one of the best things about life in general. I feel as deeply about very few things other than art. But it doesn't mean I care about all the artists out there like I care about my family or the way I cared about Brian or David. Quite the opposite. There have been very few working artists I have cared as much as I cared about Brian. And now they are all pretty much dead. As corny as it sounds, Brian's passing is the end of an era for me. Who knows? Maybe there will be more new artists someday that I can build a new similar connection with through their art. Though it feels next to impossible as I'm totally disconnected from today's music and films. I don't get what's happening at all when it comes to modern art. But back now to Brian. I indeed met him once, though it was an artificial interaction through a meet and greet, and I was even too scared to say anything. What can you even say to a guy that's heard and seen it all? So my little interaction with him ended up being just a meaningful eye contact, smile, and a big fat bundle of $100 bills straight out of my student loan account in change of those 5 seconds of his time and a few autographs. And I'm more than grateful for that. That's a lifetime of memories and the least I could do for the guy that practically saved my life through his music. I made so many memories traveling to see Brian perform. He only came once to my home country, and even that show was on the other side of the country. To be honest, it felt like a joke since nobody here really knew who Brian was, at least not around me. The Beach Boys never really hit big in Finland. I felt I was pretty much the only fan in the whole country. I couldn't believe the show was actually happening even after I saw the billboards with Brian's face on the street while walking to the show. It just felt so surreal. But it did happen, and that ended up being the second to last time I saw him. It was always a special thing to fly to London, which was my usual go-to city when I go to see concerts in general. But especially to see Brian perform. And man, the audiences on those London shows were the best ever. A lot of younger people like me, and they applauded like crazy. I've never seen quite anything like that before or since. Brian wasn't lying when he said that the British fans were the best. They weren't just nostalgia trips. The fans were there out of the appreciation of the music. They knew the catalog through and through. And the set lists were amazing. All Prayer, Heroes and Villains, Wake the World, Sail on Sailor, Let the Wind Blow, the whole Pet Sounds album, Wild Honey, Funky Pretty, Love and Mercy. The list just goes on and on. The last time I saw Brian sing was at the Hammersmith Odeon Theatre in 2017. During the bridge of Surfer Girl, Brian dropped out of the blue the most beautiful and soft vocal of his signature part that I've ever heard him sing. He literally blew the original recording out of the water. It was a jaw-dropping moment. He still was able to deliver pieces of that original brilliance at that time. I was supposed to see him again at Royal Albert Hall a few years later. I had front row tickets and everything set, but then the show was postponed multiple times and eventually cancelled. Brian's health declined and he retired from touring. To be honest, it was sometimes sad to see video recordings of his shows from the 2020s because something had changed. That wasn't how I remembered him from those shows that I witnessed him in London and Finland from 2012 to 2017. Though I still would have gone to see him if I had a chance, as his band was literally the best band in the business. I would have gone to see him even if Brian wasn't there. I'll see them even if Brian wasn't there at all, and still would. Anyway, so many great memories from those London trips. They weren't some little Sunday drives for me. The trip as a whole for me was almost as long as a flight from New York to London. I remember once chatting with Nelson Bragg, the percussionist/vocalist of Brian's band, outside of the Royal Albert Hall. I met a few of the other members too. They made you feel like you're part of the family. And it's not just memories related to those shows themselves, it's all of it. I never would have done those trips at all. Sometimes alone, sometimes with family or friends. All the sightseeings, walks at night, endless memories, those happened all thanks to Brian. Brian will be forever remembered for his compositions. Even if we lose the ability to preserve and listen to recorded music, Brian's compositions will last on written form. Just like all the other great work by classical composers throughout the centuries. But there's a few other aspects about Brian other than his musical abilities that I want to highlight as well. First of all, he was one of the funniest guys I've ever met. Just look at a few of his interviews. When he's having a good day, he just radiates positivity and extraordinary deadpan humor. His sense of humor combined to his smart and quick brains and a no-filter type of attitude was just something to behold. There was no one else like that. He was funny without trying to be funny. He just was that way, just like he was cool without trying to be cool. He showed that a charismatic rock star on stage doesn't have to look and move like Mick Jagger or Freddie Mercury. That a frontman can just as well walk onto the stage in sweatpants and sneakers and still be cool and deliver. He was also a big messenger for anti-drugs, mental health issues, and weight problems. The latter two of those things I can relate to as well, and have found strength and motivation many times for my own struggles while thinking about Brian and listening him share his stories. For all these things, I will be eternally grateful for him. Goodbye, Brian, the greatest composer of the late 20th century.